Are you done? Okay, husband, about turn. Okay, just face your husband. Let me take you to your wife so that you not go to someone else's wife. This is your wife. This is your wife. This is your wife. Don't talk with your husband though. You are not permitted. I'm the only one that is permitted to talk now. No, I've not told you it's time. Just hold on. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. Okay, that's your wife. Don't worry, just you're in front of your wife. Okay. So we're going to count together for them. At the count of 3, you will start. And so there are pegs all around your wife. Please look for the pegs. Look for the pegs. There are pegs all around your wife. At the count of 3, I'll say 1. The whole congregation in here will give us 2, and we all say 3 together. Are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? Okay, I say 1, and we say 3. So start, begin to look. The light is holding a place. Please put it inside that place. Please start very well. Make sure you are starting. Please start. There are 2 steps round. Please make sure you are starting. Look for men round your wife. Don't talk with your husband though. Make sure you are not talking with your husband. Make sure you are not talking with your husband. Just look for the bed. There are 2 beds. Please look round. Start. Please start. There are 6 beds all around your wife. Please start. Don't laugh. Okay. Please hold this one. There are 6 beds. Are you sure? Are you sure? Okay, 1. Okay. Okay. This number 1. Okay. Come over here. Go ahead. Please for the bed. There are 2 beds now. Move now. There are 2 beds all around. Make sure you start very well. There are beds all around. Please start. Are you sure you have the right number of beds? There are 2 beds all around. Don't talk with your... There are 2 beds. Please move. Start. This is your wife. You're fast now. Start. There are 6 beds. I can see 0. Make sure you are starting. Start. Look for it now. Look for it. Please look for it. You cannot say again. Are you sure? I can see C1. I can see C1. Me, I can see C1. Yeah. Down a little, okay? Move up a little. Okay. Sideways. Okay, sideways. You're almost there. Just make sure you're okay. Off again. You can go. You are almost there. Okay, downward. Okay, can you see now? You almost see it now. Okay, move Exactly. Okay, the next one. Okay, they want to just give you the truth. Okay, let's come together. Together 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 13. The next one, okay. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, the next one. Okay. 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And 3 here. Okay, the last one. Okay. Okay, the last one is still there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 13, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11. Yeah, 4. Okay. Okay. Now, Sister Shade, please, you need to come forward and ask the men. Please, you need to ask the men. Was there a place on their right that they did not touch? Please ask them. Was there a place? No. They said they all touch everywhere. And so that's the reason why we came for to rejuvenate what? The touching and the romance. And so thank you so much. God bless you. Please put your hands together for them. Thank you so much. And so we are through, thank you. We'll come up with, till the evening we'll come up with something else. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. So for those that participated, this is just a prelude, a preamble. So it's just to remind us that we have been licensed to touch. There is no limit to what you can touch, because there is I don't know myself, and she does not own herself. It's 100% acquisition when the acquisition was done. So there should not be any control somewhere when it comes to touching. Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. And as many that are yet to run on the back, don't worry. There's still going to be opportunity for that. So we go into health and wellness. Health and wellness.
So at this point, we want to look at health issues that relate to us as individuals and as couples. You know, the desire of God, when we are talking about vision, is that God in His Word says He wrote out so many visions for us. And the aspect of our health is such that God's vision for us is that above all things, we wish that we what? We be in good health and prosper as our soul prospereth. So to further enlighten us and give us more understanding of it, we'll be calling on Dr. Agege. Can we welcome him? Dr. Agege. Okay, can we welcome her? You welcome my sister. God bless.
Praise the Lord. Are you having a good time? And I know that there is so much more for us to learn today. I want to appreciate all the coordinators of this couples retreat. And I want to thank you for all the hard work that has gone into this event. And I know that the Lord is still going to bless us in Jesus' name. So we are going to be talking about health and wellness. Can you hear me very well? Okay. Health and wellness, and we're going to be looking more into our mental well-being. And we're going to be looking at some definitions, and we're going to be looking at how we can care for our mental well-being and how all other aspects of our health impact on our well-being. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions by the end of this discussion. So please just pick your pen and your paper and help me to scribble down those questions so that I can look at them together at the end. So, which one goes up, which goes down? So this is a prayer for us. God desires that we enjoy a good health. As we are well in our soul, so He desires that we are well in our bodies as well as our mind. And I want us to look at some important definitions. And I would actually have liked to ask maybe one or two of us about what we think health means. Is there any difference between health and wellness? What is illness? How do those things make meaning to us? But because of time, I'll just quickly highlight the definitions. So according to the World Health Organization, we have the definition as far back as 1948, which says that health is complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So you don't have malaria, you don't have hypertension, you don't have cholera, you don't have typhoid. It doesn't mean that you are healthy. And how about wellness? Wellness is defined as the state of being healthy in body and in mind as a result of deliberate efforts. So what we are doing today is actually a deliberate effort at ensuring that we can attain wellness. And what is disease? I really want to establish a difference between disease and illness, because some of us, because we don't have a disease, we think that we are fine. If we don't have an illness, we think that we are fine. So disease refers to an abnormal state of the mind and the body, whereas illness refers to a suboptimal level of functioning in the mind and the body. And that means that you can have a disease and yet you will not feel ill. And so you won't know that there is anything wrong until maybe you go for a checkup and somebody says that, oh, they found something. So there's a difference between disease and illness. Okay, so what does the World Health Organization say about mental health or mental well-being? It is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential That's number one. You know what your potential is as a person. You can cope with the normal stresses of life, which are inevitable. You can't escape from them. And then you can work productively and fruitfully, and you are able to make a contribution to your family and your community. You agree with me that this is a very extensive definition of mental well-being. So it's not just how you feel up here, but your impact and how fruitful and productive you are as a person. So let's define mental illness. Mental illness is any condition that has a negative effect on how a person thinks, feels, and behaves. So many times we think that when people have mental health problems, maybe it's a psychiatric case, they have to go to Yaba left or something. But we find out that they have quite a large number of people who have mental illnesses, and yet you don't see them in hospital. So if you have any condition, there's some things that we have discussed today, for example, that have impacted on your mental well-being. The way you think, the way you feel, and the way in which you react to your spouse or a family member. I would just summarize this aspect. I would like us to know that there are 6 major pillars of a healthy lifestyle. So you hear some people say, oh, lifestyle. When we're talking about lifestyle medicine, we have 6 major pillars that hold the whole thing. One is nutrition. One is physical activity. Thank God a lot of us were around in the morning when we have those aerobics. That's part of physical activity. We also have emotional and mental well-being, and I highlighted it because that's where we're going to be dwelling more on. We have what we call positive psychology and connectedness. I will explain that further. We also have sleep and substance avoidance. So it's important for us to know that each of these pillars, they affect our mental well-being. Our health is multidimensional, and each dimension has an impact on the other. So these are different levels of health. We have physical health, we have emotional health, we have mental health, social health, spiritual health, very key, then environmental and occupational health. So we find out that all these aspects of health, they impact on our mental health. And would you agree with me that mental health is just as important as physical health? Is there anybody that has a contrary opinion? Do you think that your physical well-being is more important? But how many of us really pay attention to our mental health? Okay, let's look at some of the statistics that will help us to realize how important our mental health is. I came across this information from the World Health Organization, which looks at the suicidal rates, globally. And interestingly, Nigeria came up as one of the countries with the highest suicidal rates. And this is as far back as 2016. And I was quite surprised, even though they are much higher in India, in China, in the US, Russia, Japan, but how about the African countries? Nigeria is taking a lead, where we are the most populous country in Africa. So probably that's the reason. So it tells you that we need to address our mental health in Nigeria. Another important reason why we need to look at mental health is because Christians are now committing suicide. So you might think that this person is a pastor. He's a Christian. He knows that he can trust God even in the midst of a hard their situation. So there's a story about these 2 people. They were not pastors, Jared Wilson and Darren Patrick. They were members of a church, a Baptist church in Tennessee, and they committed suicide within months of each other. And both of them preached within months of passing or committing suicide. So what went wrong? If they could come to the altar and preach and encourage people, and the pastor of that church also mentioned that he sat with them, on the same table, dinner table, they ate. So was it that they couldn't share their fears or their concerns?
Anyway, a revival broke out after that, which was good. God turned it into good at the end of the day. But I believe that this was also a pointer that God wants us to pay attention to our mental health. Nearly 1 in 4 young women have mental illness. And this is information from NHS when they're talking about the prevalence of mental disorders by age. So if you have children, a girl is more likely to have issues with mental health. Also, more than 1 in 4 women who are aged 16 to 24 have things like anxiety, depression, panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorders, which are all types of mental illnesses. And we'll mention some of them. Generally, women have a 2 times risk of developing depression compared to men. So that diagram is just highlighting the role of gender in mental health. And why do women have such issues? I wish some of us could see this picture and maybe you could look at it on the Zoom platform. It just shows how women are pulled in different directions. You know, this woman is on the farm, really. I think she looks like a farmer, and she's trying to care for her children. She's meeting her husband's need. She has to get water to cook. She needs fuel, maybe from firewood. She has to clean the house. She doesn't feel comfortable when the house is dirty. If someone is sick at home, whether it's the husband or the children, she has to stay awake and care for the person or even take the child to the hospital. I've discovered that it's women largely that bring children to the hospital. Sometimes they even have to bring their husbands to the hospital. Too little money, farming or working, too little food. So somebody was sharing with us earlier and was saying she would have cooked for the whole house. At the end of the day, she won't even have the appetite to eat. Okay, so we have various sources of attacks to our mental health. We know that the devil goes about like a roaring lion seeking whom to devour. But there will be a means or a channel through which he will get to us. And these are some of the areas. And there was something that Pastor Nyoda highlighted earlier, which is coming up here. Because when we're talking about stress, we're going to talk about stress management, but there are so many things that can cause stress. Some of them are internal, some are external. You know, some of them are self-inflicted, and we need to watch out for those things. So when you are trying to please everyone, you're always easily frustrated. Frustration in itself is an emotion that will stress your body and stress your mind and cause damage to your mental well-being. Comparing yourself with others, you know, in the area of competition, you're trying to compete with someone. They've gotten this car, I have to get that car. But they've gotten this Ashwebi, I have to buy my own. I have to look good at that event, even when you know you have not budgeted for that amount. When you're not satisfied with your job, and that's why sometimes you can't stay in the job for too long. You need to trust God for the next place where you're moving to, because that can be an attack on your mental health, except you see the real reason why you need to be at that job. Beliefs that we have about where we are or what we are doing, pressure from work, financial problems, even pollution. You know how traffic is and how there are fumes everywhere. We have industrial cities now. And one thing that has been highlighted by the World Health Organization is that all these fumes, these pollutions, 80% of cardiovascular diseases are due to air pollution. And we don't know it. And we still go about, you know, inhaling all those things day in, day out. And what are cardiovascular diseases? Hypertension, you know, heart disease. You know, those are cardiovascular illnesses. Okay, traffic congestion can be a stress. You can feel so tired even before getting to work because of traffic. How about life events? Life events are things that happen to you suddenly and drastically without you really being prepared for them. They are sudden events that change the course of one's life drastically. And we have illness. Someone has COVID-19. You know, that is an attack on the person's mental well-being. Caring for that person that is sick, having to be in hospital on admission with someone who is sick, loss of livelihood, failure at exams, marriage in itself can pose an attack on one's mental well-being. And we've discovered that sometimes as people are getting married, life seems to be going so well and everything just turns upside down. How about divorce? Divorce is second to death on the list of life events that can impact on mental well-being. Moving house, domestic violence as well. So those are the things that one might need to address. So you could do all the prayers. Of course, prayer changes things, but if you have not identified the area where the attack is coming from and you have not gotten access to care in that area, for example, someone who is undergoing domestic violence and the person stays in that home without any help, the person is going to become depressed. So the person needs to get care. These are some of the psychological effects of the pandemic. I'm sure many of us experienced this last year, and we're also glad that it's passed, but this impacted on people's mental health. I remember people calling me saying, "Doctor, I'm so scared. Maybe I'm the next person that will get COVID-19. What will happen to me?" A lot of fears. Some people were able to control the anxiety and the fears they had, but some people could not. How about boredom? Not knowing what to do, hunger, illness, loss of businesses and jobs, social isolation from not being connected to loved ones. All these are issues that came up as a result of the corona virus pandemic. So I will just quickly talk about some of these mental health disorders. I think I highlighted some of them briefly, and the common ones are actually depression, anxiety, but I want to say a little bit about them so I will really know what they are, and then we're going to cone down by talking about stress, because before people get depressed, it means that there was some form of unmanaged stress, in their life that they were not able to handle. So we have anxiety disorders, depressive disorders. Even these disorders, there are different types, when it comes to psychiatry, when you break them down. We have what we call eating disorders, like bulimia, anorexia, people that will eat and they will go and throw up, because they don't want to put on weight. Or people who would not eat at all because they don't want to put on weight. They want to have a certain image. So that's what we call anorexia. We also have what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. Someone has gone through a stressful occurrence. I remember there was a day I was driving on this expressway. I was coming from work in Luz, and I was almost robbed that day. But the way the person just suddenly tapped on my car and said, "Give me your rings." Suddenly, I saw that the vehicle in front of me, which was a Molue, moved. And I just stepped on my accelerator. But I think in my anxiety, I went too fast and I hit the Molue. I hit the bus beside me. Of course, the guy ran away. But I discovered that every time I was on that road, I would have that fear that if someone tapped on my car, I would think that is a robber or someone is going to rob me, and my heart will start beating very fast, palpitations. So that happens a lot to people when they have gone through, an unexpected event, and some people might not even be able to control it at the end of the day. We also have mood disorders. We have phobias, maybe the fear of something, the fear of a height, the fear of a closed environment. We have panic disorders. In a panic disorder, the person is having symptoms of panic but doesn't know why. He can't explain it. You feel that you are afraid something terrible is about to happen, but you can't even say what exactly is causing that problem. There are ways of addressing this. Stress and burnout. We'll talk about stress. If stress is not managed properly, you can burn out. Even if you are a pro, in whatever you are doing. We also have somatoform disorders. I usually like highlighting this a lot because in somatoform disorders, what happens is that people have feelings. Someone will come at me too. I have a crawling sensation on my head. My head is heavy. I feel something like worms moving around my body. And you go to the hospital, we'll do the scans, we'll do the x-rays, the blood tests, the workup, comprehensive medical screening. And at the end of the day, you can't really find anything. So many times I get these patients after they have gone round and round and round, shopping for doctors, and by the time they come to me, and we have to do what we call psychoeducation, because that's the first step in relieving the anxiety that they feel from not having their concerns addressed. Amen. I can see that some people are having a jolly time over there. And then I have a timekeeper because we have just about, I don't know what the time is now. What's the time now? The time. Okay. All right. So I should continue. Okay. So those are the problems we've had. I've talked about the stress from COVID, which is still a problem up till now, but we discovered that the rates of anxiety and depression, they went up because of COVID. Okay. So are there any symptoms? You know, when we're talking about stress, we're talking about mental illness, and you know you're not optimal. What are the symptoms that you have that will make you feel that, oh, I need help, or there's something I need to do? So stress has an impact on both the mind, the body, the emotions, and our behavior, which I had mentioned earlier about how mental illness impacts us, how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. So if you notice any of these things in your own behavior or in the way you feel or the way you think, it might be that there is an aspect of your life that is not being well managed, that the stress is not being well managed. Because I want to emphasize that stress is important. We have what we call eustress, which is good stress. And we also have what we call bad stress, which is distress, like when a bank goes into distress. And that is when we have not managed ourselves properly. Okay. So, what are some of the problems in our bodies? If you find out that you're always having headaches frequently, it might just be that you're stressed. So, taking paracetamol is not really a solution. So, when we're talking about lifestyle medicine, we say avoid taking a pill for every ill, but look at the cause of disease. What has caused this problem so that you can address the cause and you don't have to keep on taking up that pill all the time. So if you're having recurrent headaches, it might just be a form of stress. Your body is calling your attention. We have other things like tense muscles, tension in the neck, on the back. And so some people will come to the hospital complaining of back pain. You do an x-ray, you won't find anything wrong with the skeleton or the muscles, but it's because of the tension, the back becomes taut, and then you have pain. How about irritations, skin irritations, frequent infections? And why is that? Because when we are stressed, the body's cortisol levels go up. And cortisol is a stress hormone, and it depresses our immunity. We need cortisol normally for certain functions in the body, but when it is elevated for too long, then we begin to have a depressed immune response. And then you find out that you're always falling sick. Some people, every month, they must treat malaria. Even when it's not really, they don't really need to treat it. If they are taking some certain lifestyle precautions, you find out that you won't have to treat malaria so often. How about emotions? When you feel that you're not confident most of the time, you just find out that you feel this sense of failure, you feel unhappy, you feel alienated, like you're not just part of what is happening, you are not flowing. That can be a symptom of stress. If you find out that you're always irritable or angry, you're always angry, responding in anger or irritable to a situation, that can be an expression of stress. Or if you're always apprehensive, always fearful. How about when it comes to the mind? We have worrying, impaired judgments. You are not making the right decisions. You always feel negative, or you make hasty decisions. Some people have nightmares. So these are the ways in which it impacts the mind. In our behavior, you could find out that you're always having accidents. You're accident prone. You don't have a good appetite. Your sex drive is poor. you find out that you feel more inclined to drinking or taking alcohol. It might be that there's something going on, and that's why you are looking more to that area. Not sleeping well can be a sign of stress. Smoking more, restlessness. We're going to be talking a bit more about smoking and alcohol, and we'll look at whether we have benefits in those areas when it comes to our health. Okay, so this is a stress curve. You can see it. So it actually tells us about our performance. Our performance, when we have too little stress, at this point, we become inactive. You become laid back. You are not even achieving anything. You are not productive. So that is because you don't have what we call eustress, which is the good stress. And then when we get to this yellow area, this is where the stress is optimum. You're having good levels of stress. You're being pushed at work. There are demands, but you're coping. You're meeting up. And at this point, if it continues or it exceeds this level, then you begin to go down. And that's where we have overload. When you're taking on more than you can really cope with at that time, or maybe there's a situation in your life that is making those things that you were coping with initially a bit more difficult to cope with. An example is um, an examination. If you have been writing exams before and you have time to read, you study, and you pass. But if you now get to a time in your life when you're juggling so many things, or maybe there's a loved one that is even ill, and you have to take care of that person, and yet you still have to study, you find out that you'll be overloaded at that point in time. And then people can break down at the end of the day and burn out. So this is a place where I pray that none of us get to. But a lot of people have gotten to that stage before they realize and begin to work on their schedules and their health. I wish people knew that my mental health is so physical. So our mental well-being is just as physical as the symptoms that we feel when we are ill and we have malaria. So this is a young girl. You can see headaches. This is like a summary. Even pain in the mouth or the jaw, palpitations, gas in the tummy. Your tummy is upset, cramps, night sweats, restless legs, biting the fingers, fatigue, exhaustion, tense shoulders. All these are also very physical. So when people come with some of these symptoms, we don't deny the existence of the symptoms. You understand? Because some people will say, oh, you're thinking too much, stop thinking. No, it's not a matter of that person thinking. But those symptoms are real to that person. So if you have not addressed the underlying problem, then the person will keep on um, being unhappy and unproductive. So when it comes to anxiety disorders, these are some of the symptoms. We have what we call apprehension. I think I mentioned that before, or dread about something. You just find out that you are generally worried about everything. You know, your children are going to school, you are worried. You have to go to the market, you are worried. You have to go to school. There are people like that, and they don't know why, but they just find out that they are worried. So if you are having that kind of symptom, you need to get attention. We also have dry mouth, feeling faint or dizzy. Yes, dizziness is a very common symptom of stress or anxiety. So people complain of dizziness. You think it's malaria, but it's not really malaria, but it's because of their state of mind, because of something that is going on that hasn't been addressed. Trembling, shaking, numbness, tingling sensations, hot flushes, chills, palpitations, breathing fast. I've talked about headaches and poor sleep. So many of those symptoms, they overlay each other. So, but when you come to the hospital, there's a way in which you'll be able to decide whether this is depression or anxiety or a panic disorder or just stress. But when it comes to depression, the way you know someone is depressed, normally there is neglect. The person neglects them, they will neglect themselves. So it's not you saying, oh, I'm depressed, I feel unhappy. That is not depression. But when you're having symptoms of sadness for up to 2 weeks at a stretch and it's impacting on your function, you find out that you can't even go out. You can't do the things that you were interested in before. You used to like going for choir rehearsal, but now when they talk about choir rehearsal, me Jari, or there's something that you used to love doing, you just find out that you lose interest. That is a salient key symptom of depression. Many of the other symptoms that would let you know is feelings of guilt and worthlessness. If you just always feel negative about yourself, there's nothing good I've ever done, I'm a failure, I'm the cause of this problem, I know I'm the cause. When you're having such negative feelings, then you need help. Don't wait for things to degenerate further, because at the end of the day, these people begin to have suicidal thoughts, or they even attempt. There's a young girl I'm seeing now, just about 16 or 17 years, and she has severe depression. So if you're seeing a girl with that, now she's getting better. But initially, she was always sad, negative thoughts. She will have that feeling that she needs to just end it. So if such people don't seek care on time, they will commit suicide. And that's why the suicide rates are going up. Okay, we've mentioned many of these other things. Another important thing here is loss of energy. I remember a colleague of mine, also a physician, the way in which he knew that there was something wrong with him. He said he would be driving and he would discover that it would take him like 1 hour to drive a distance of 5 minutes. Not that there is traffic or hold up, but he doesn't even just have the energy to press the accelerator to keep going. And so he just goes slowly and slowly. So it was at some point he said, there's something wrong with me. He was depressed. Okay, these are some stressful seasons in our lives that if they are not handled properly, they can lead to anxiety, they can lead to depression. And we all go through them. And that's why I say stress is inevitable. You can't escape it. But the way in which you cope during that stressful season is important. So what are the seasons of life? We have pregnancy and breastfeeding. I'm sure women will agree with me that this period of life is highly demanding. And if you have to do several other things at the same time, it takes a toll, especially when a woman cannot sleep enough at night. Illness, someone that is sick, someone has cancer. You can imagine the toll that it takes on both the body and the mind. Demands of work. Maybe you even have a boss who is not really understanding, and they complain about every single thing. That is a stressful season. Exams, I mentioned that before. Economic hardship, we have that going on in Nigeria right now. Failure, maybe business failure, the pandemic, insecurity. There are some places in Nigeria now, people can't go out. Once it's 5, they don't go out anymore because of the fear of being kidnapped. Okay, so how do we cope in stressful seasons? Because that's the whole essence of this discussion. And I want us to remember the reason why we're going through this is because knowledge is power. And the Bible says in Deuteronomy 29:29 that the secret things belong to the Lord our God, and those things that are revealed, they belong to we and our children, that we might do all the words of the law. Sometimes we think it is only what is in the Bible, but the Lord gives wisdom, and that wisdom, he said we should embrace it. So scientific knowledge comes from God. It's not, man cannot boast and say, oh, it's because I know this thing. It is God that's given that knowledge, and we should embrace it. We know that the enemy will want to distort it one way or the other, but in wisdom, we'll know how to apply it to ourselves. So I will just quickly highlight some of the unhealthy ways in which people deal with stress. When people are stressed, these are the things that they do. So, have I been talking for 20 minutes? Is it up to 20 minutes? Okay, I just want us to take a stretch. And do you know why I want us to stretch a little? Let's stand up and stretch a bit. The reason is because when we sit down for too long, our metabolism slows down. It slows down. Yes.
Let's stand up. We want to spell coconut. We spare coconuts with our body. Some of us women that have been to Ajara were taught there sometimes ago. So we're going to spare coconut. I know we can all spell it. Coconut. So let's spell it again.
Thank you, ma'am. You can have your seat, please. So I usually tell people, and this is based on research, when you have sat down for up to 30 minutes at a stretch, your metabolism slows down markedly. So that's the reason why some people put on weight, because at their jobs, they're always sitting down. They might not eat much, but they are always sitting down. So you could have exercised 30 minutes in a day, gone for a run, or exercise for 1 hour. If you spend the remaining 23 hours sitting down, your body's metabolism slows and you put on weight. Okay, we'll talk more about that later. So these are some of the unhealthy ways in which